Okay, so just some other plants to have a look at. This is a hedge on either side of a lane down to a yard, and you can see we've got a variety of plants here around us. Again, it's just good to get in the habit of identifying them and knowing which ones are beneficial and which ones are potentially harmful and what role they all play. So looking at the tree here, first of all, this is a beech tree. So you can see this time of the year it has these lovely soft pale green leaves, and it's also got this really smooth kind of silvery grey bark, and it'll produce beech nuts in the autumn, but not every year. So these are all another beech tree here, they're the one on the left. Beech trees don't produce beech nuts every year, but when they do, they produce an awful lot of them. They're not toxic, but a lot of animals, pigs in particular, like them. And we also have a little bit of hazel here. So this is hazel. Again, it's got these darker green leaves. When they open out first, they've got this very sharp crease down the middle, and they gradually open out. They'll have hazelnuts on them in the autumn. Non-toxic, widely used hedging plant in Ireland. Beneficial if you have it. Then you can see this hedge here has been trimmed. Again, this is a whitethorn hedge. We've got these kind of lobe leaves that open up. There's nice bright green colour in every spring. This particular one won't flower this year because this hedge was cut last autumn. See, you've got some holly in here as well. Another good native plant, prickly, so makes a good hedging plant. Animals are less inclined to try and get through it. It also produces flowers in the summer for insects, and seeds and berries in the winter that birds will eat if they're very hungry. They generally won't eat holly berries until late in the year. If you have a hard winter, you'll see the birds eating them. And here's another bumblebee around here. Yeah, here's one. And you can see that. But this is a white-tailed or buff-tailed bumblebee, one of the really common ones you see around here. Looking on then, we also have some vetch here. Mentioned that the wild pea. It's got these little tendrils that are used to grow up the other plants. Nice blue flowers in the springtime. Again, it is edible. If you pinch off the top and eat it. Tastes of slightly of peas, which is nice. Then moving across here, we've got cow parsley coming into flower, widely spread through the hedges in the countryside. Again, some insects feed off it, so leave it be, not doing any harm. Again, try and avoid the urge to get out the lawnmower or the strimmer and cut the edges. You know, once you're not obscuring your vision at a dangerous junction, leave the plants on the side of the road or the side of the path to grow. Again, they're an important source of biodiversity. What else have we got in here? If we have a look, that tree there, another ash tree. So we mentioned how that's the last one to open out its leaves. It looks dead, but it's not. That's just waiting to flower or for the leaves to come out. Beside it then we have an oak tree. So again, Irish oak trees have this really kind of gnarly looking bark. And then if we have a look at the leaves, I'll climb up on the bank here. You can see the oak tree leaf just starting to take shape there. It's got the characteristic kind of indentations along it. It'll produce acorns later in the year. Acorns do contain a low level of toxin, but most animals won't eat them in high enough numbers to do them any harm. Standing on the bank here, so there's the lane. I'm now on the bank, which has a hedge on it, and then you can see down here there's a drain. Again, looking at the old Ordnance Survey maps, these fields have been like this for at least 200 years. The drains that are here now were on the 200-year-old maps as well. So you can see in the middle of this field there's a drain running along the lowest point. Gonna disturb another angry blackbird instead of a nest here. I'll be gone in a minute. Then that drain has water flowing into it from this drain here, which is running underneath the road from our neighbour's farm across the other side of the hill there. So the water flows down this into the drain, and then that leads in about half a mile away through the next field and over the brow under the hill into a small local river. So again, bear in mind that it's important to avoid toxins or pesticides getting into local drains and waterways, because they're interconnected into freshwater rivers and lakes that we don't want to contaminate. You can see as well along the hedge over there on the left, there's some rushes. So there's a little damp patch in this field here where we get rushes growing. Very, very hard to kill rushes now. The pesticides or the herbicides that could kill them are gradually going off the market, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you may find yourself, if you have a rush problem, having to resort to mechanically cutting them to try and get rid of them, which is easier said than done. And then we have another beech tree here. Again, you can see It's got those lovely bright green leaves this time of the year and silvery bark. On this particular tree there was a big branch there that broke off it in a storm 2 winters ago, and our neighbour took those branches and he's piled them up here in the corner of the field. So you can see he's put a little bit of fence along it to keep the cattle out. He's got divided into 2 groups. There's the large timber to the left, and then there's the smaller branches here nearer me. And again, that looks a bit unsightly, some people think, but that's actually a really good habitat. So dead, decaying branches provide shelter in the winter time for hibernating insects. Birds will nest in them, you know, they need shelter. So again, don't be tempted to tidy everything up within an inch of its life. If we go in and have a look here, one sec now. I'm just going to pause this and try. I'm not going to go any further because I want to get stung. There's lots of nettles in here, but if I just go in a bit closer, I don't know if you can see it. That timber there in the corner. Those white bits on it are fungi, so they're again an important part of soil health. Dead timber is broken down by fungal strands and hyphae into humus, H-U-M-U-S, not H-U-M-M-U-S, which puts nutrients back into the soil. So really important to keep our soils healthy is to ensure that there's nutrients going back in there, not just fertiliser. You can also hear in here just how many insects there are around me. As I stand in here I can hear a bumblebee. There he is, another buff-tailed bumblebee queen just flew past me. There's lots of flies as well, small insects, all important sources of nutrition for local birds. You can hear around me, again, blackbirds, sparrows, starlings, robins, blue tits, yellow finches, coal tits. We've got magpies, hooded crows, jackdaws, buzzards. So the whole spectrum from very small birds, from the wrens right up to the large birds of prey at the top of the food chain, all surviving on this, what is, you know, intensively reared farmland and grassland. So it is important to try and provide bits of the farm like this where we have, you can see some nettles here, we'll have some butterfly caterpillars on those later in the summer. We've got this sticky stuff here, is robin run the hedge. You know, it's the stuff that sticks to your clothes when you're a kid, or it comes back in your dog's coat covering those little white sticky burrs. And again, an important native species. You can see I don't know if you can see it, or we can hear the bumblebee hovering around down there. Bumblebees nest in the ground or in undergrowth. They don't build hives like honeybees, so they need some undisturbed land to have their nests in as well and be safe from predators. So again, it's just an important reminder that, you know, yes, you can see there's cattle out there eating the grass, but there's also lots of other life that we want to try and support on our land management. Just a word on fencing. So we've got most of this field surrounded by hedges for shelter, and we've got a strand of electric tape here to keep the cattle back. Now at the moment the cattle are in the other side of the paddock, so this fence isn't electrified so I can touch it without getting a shock. But you can see it's made up of white tape with tiny little metal strands running through it to conduct the current. If animals get tied up in this, it'll break, which is important. You can see here it's broken and someone's tied it back together. Really important. You'll sometimes see people using nylon rope for electric fences. It will carry a current, but it's dangerous. If the animal gets caught up in it, it won't break and it'll just cut through them. I've euthanized several animals that have got caught up in nylon rope, and it'll act like a saw, cuts through all their skin and tendons right down to the bone. Disaster, so avoid it. You can see here in terms of putting down electric fences, you get these little metal rods. They just push into the ground, and then there's a little plastic conductor on top that you flick the tape into to hold it. That's insulated so the current stays in the tape, doesn't go down through the metal rod into the ground. That'll obviously stop the fence working. And you can see as well, at the moment the grass is short, but if the grass gets longer and touches electric fence, again it'll earth it, the current will go down into the ground, the fence will no longer be effective. So important, if you're using electric fence, check every day that it's working. And the other thing to point out is just how nosy cattle are. So you can see these ones have realised I'm up chatting away to myself in the corner of the field. So they're coming over to see what's going on. So people often think that, oh, if I put some rubbish into the field, animals will ignore it, but they're nosy, they will come and look at it. So you can see these are my neighbour's heifers, and they're over here to see what's going on. They're curious. They're contained behind that electric fence in this case. Let's wait for this motorbike to go by. Here's another one. Someone's in a hurry. So you can see these cattle, they're curious, they don't know me, so they come over to see who I am and what I'm doing. And these are all yearling heifers that were born this time last year. You can see for the colour of them, they're mostly Limousin or Simmental crosses, all out now full time, enjoying the grass and the sunshine and the good weather in a small, stable social group. And you can see here, this fence is electrified, I'm not going to touch it, but we've got these little conductors here to carry the current through the wire and stop it going down the fence post into the ground. Sorry ladies, turned around and gave them a fright. Just to point out as well, cowpats, not very glamorous, but I don't know if you can see there's lots of insects feeding off the cowpat. You'll also get worms underneath it coming up to get nutrients and pull them down into the soil. So grazing animals are an important part of the ecosystem, aren't you ladies? Yeah. So we need grazing animals to keep the ecosystem alive as well. If we take cattle out and we no longer have droppings in the ground, there's less food for insects, there's less food for the birds that eat the insects. The whole thing is interconnected, so just bear that in mind. You'll find it on organic farms, they're usually mixed systems. They'll have livestock and crops because we need both to ensure good biodiversity and ensure that there's lots of food available for all the various species that rely on it. This lady is about to try and lick my phone. This red one is the boss of the group. She's the first one over all the time to see what's going on. The water drinker in this field was stuck yesterday. I had to come in and fix it, so she came over to see what's happening, didn't you? Yeah. So just a reminder, cowpats, really important source of food for insects and soil fertility. You'll also see, I don't know if you can see it now down the bottom of the field there are starlings. We've nesting starlings in the hedge and the gutters of the house, and they're coming down and they're rooting through these cowpats, taking out insects and carrying them back to their nest to feed their young. You'll find that this time of the year. If you watch the starlings, they're flying back and forth with insects all the time. So we need bird tables are a good idea, but most birds rear their offspring on insects because they're so high in protein and fat. So we do need insect life as well as seeds and nuts to feed the birds. Okay, I'll leave these ladies alone. If we just go across here to the bit of the field they're not in, so this grass hasn't been grazed and you can see it's longer. We've also got quite a lot of clover in here, so this tree leaf plant is clover. Remember, it's a nitrogen fixing plant, so we can take nitrogen out of the atmosphere and through its roots put it back into the soil. So again, that helps maintain soil fertility. But you can see how much longer the grass is here in this patch compared to the bit a few yards away that the cattle have spent the last 2 days grazing. So once the grass is eaten down, we'll move them on to the next pasture and let this grass grow back, and that way you're trying to maintain enough grass for the animals to grow well and not so much that the field gets cut up or damaged or overgrazed. So it's all about balance. And here's another honeybee queen. This is a buff-tailed bumblebee. You can see why, because her tail is kind of with these little yellowy hairs on it, and she's making her way back into her nest in there, which presumably is somewhere in there in that. So I've walked down the lane now slightly to the bottom of the hill, just looking out at that drain I said led into a nearby river, and you can see again slightly different ecosystem. There's water down in the bottom of the drain, so we'll normally get some frogs and insect life in there. We've got some watercress originally, not much of it now, but there used to be a lot of watercress in there. I haven't seen it in a few years. And then this plant here are willows. Willows like damp soil, or they'll often grow near waterways, so you'll find a variety of plants and trees grown in the various habitats you'll find around your farmyard or your pasture.